Bible says God is a spirit. Those that come to us worship in the spirit and truth. What if God, the spirit, is something that's substantive?
A spiritual body.
What does the research yield as far as making? God said, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness." I mean, from the beginning in the book of Genesis, what has as much as man has been able to I guess, to research to find out what, even with the question mark, what was the results of that?
Let's, I think part of our problem is there have been terms and ideas that have been floated for thousands of years. If you never knew anything about God and you went to the scriptures and said, "Let us make man in our image and after our own likeness," you had no other prior knowledge, and you look in the mirror and you look at yourself, what does that say to you about God then? Does that say God is see-through? It doesn't. Nothing about the beginning of scriptures define what we say God is.
I don't think we really have the
there's
intelligence to approach it unless the Holy Spirit posed to you a thought and you begin to ask God, "What did you mean by what you said? What does that mean?"
But I think
because not everybody comes to.
You can
I don't
say
look
that,
in the
you can say
mirror.
that. I'm not going to discredit what you're saying. I think what you're saying is valid, but at the same time, the Lord gave us language. He gave us the ability to write, and He knows what He wants us. He's written it down. Anytime, and when it says that Jesus is the express image of the Father, that means that when we saw Jesus, we see what God looks like, right? So and let's think about that image of God that we have, that Michelangelo had. He has this old gray bearded man as God because he's been around forever. He is before antiquity, right? But if the Bible says that Jesus said, "When you see me, you see the Father," then God is he looks like he's 33 years old. When you think about this, if we're to believe what Jesus said, then God's not this old gray bearded old man. When He made Adam, He didn't make Adam as a baby and raise him up. He made him as a man in His image. So now this is a whole nother kind of discussion, and because I'm the instructor, I can say this, but I don't want us to get into this back and forth. So I want you to hold on to what you have.
No, but that's what we were talking about, the anthropomorphism.
All right,
that's where the
let me just
discussion
say
came
this.
out of
I don't
that.
mind saying this. I don't have a problem. I think God has a body. I think God has a spiritual body. I think a spiritual body is not something you can see through. I think when God has a hand, I think when He extends His hand, I don't think He would have a throne if He couldn't sit down. That's my opinion. But I want to leave it as my opinion. I don't want to try to impose that on anybody. Y'all follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So I think when it comes down to it, I think that word spirit we have taken that spirit and made it what it might not be. That's my way of tactfully saying I believe that God has a body. You recording this? All right, this is my opinion. Make sure you know that this is my opinion. Is that fair enough?
I agree. Yes.
Will y'all accept that from me?
I agree.
Fair enough. I don't think
it's
it's really not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Good.
Because many times I don't seek after I don't just seek after God on my own. He gives me the desire to seek after Him. What I'm saying, maybe it was never even open up for discussion. I never even really discussed it to have formulate any thoughts, opinions, period.
So that's just my opinion.
Right.
All right. So, and you can take that and $2 and buy a cup of coffee. All right, so that's it. So I think we've gone through these. I'm trying to hopefully as we start going through, we can kind of catch these things out that kind of stand out for us. See these things in action. Okay, so now I gave you this right here, that form with he has some of these the general types.
Yep.
So I use this. I agree with some of them I don't, and I think some of them cross over into others as the song changes. So this is where I got some of this stuff from. Okay. All right. So let me tell you about the book, and then we can get into the. All right. This book is not just a literary evaluation. It uses literary devices to traverse verse to Psalms, but this is really his expository approach to the Psalms.
Okay.
He did the sequential study. He's been doing it for years. When someone said, every time you come, you give us this, and we love it, write it. So that's what this is.
Okay.
So this book is two-form. It gives us these devices, which is what we're leveraging in this class. So we're taking this literary component that he is kind of identified, and we're leveraging in this class. But then he has this expository approach to it as well. I think some of these main ideas kind of capture the song. I think sometimes, for the most part, he hits. And I don't want to discredit anybody's body of work that they spent a lifetime to do, but that's part of the beauty of it. They did the labor. We can now assess it. We can agree with it or not. It's easy for us because we're not maybe the body of work that they did. All right, where's mine? Okay, here. All right, so let's start reading through the Psalms. Are you guys fine reading through the Psalms? So let's start at 12 because you guys did 11 last week, right?
Right.
All right, so let's start at 12. We'll take turns going, okay? And as you guys read through, you can tell me what you got, or I can tell you what I got. What's your preference?
You.
Me. All right,
I mean, every time I thought I would have it, and then I would look on the paper, and I didn't have it, and so I'm gonna follow you on this one.
remember what I said.
Yeah.
At this level, I think your body of knowledge that you bring to this assessment and evaluation, I think it's just as valid as anybody else.
Maybe next week. Right now, I don't think I'm right.
Which is fine.
Okay.
Because remember, you got to get used to using these
Right.
tools.
Right. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to sit down because I'm going to split my papers out. Since I checked. All right, so initially when I did it without the definitions, I kept everything on one page.
Okay.
And now that there are multiple, so I spread them out, okay?
All right.
All right, so I'm going to sit over here. All right, so what I suggested was that people multiple translations too, right?
Okay.
So if you did that, that's great. No, what I suggested was in class we would use multiple translations.
Okay.
I used one translation to do it. I looked at other translations when I didn't understand what King James Version was saying. So I said, well, what's he really saying here? So I looked at another translation to kind of give me that.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with 12. You can start with 12.
Help.
Who's going to go? Oh, you got
Okay.
it. Okay.
Help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. They speak vanity, every one with his neighbor. With flattering lips and with a double heart do they speak. The Lord shall cut off all flattering lips, and the tongue that speaketh proud things. Who have said, with our tongue we will prevail. Our lips are our own. Who is Lord over us? For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy. Now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in the furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted.
All right, so now let's do it this way. Let's read, and as we read, if you see something that evokes an image, then you should stop, and then we should discuss it, because that's where you should have stopped anyway. Does that make sense? All right, so if we start with the first one, all right, so the first place I got imagery was in verse 1. All right, so I said this is synonymous parallelism. All right, so in verse 2, synonymous parallelism as well.
So what did you do? You went through.
All right, so let's.
Because I was doing it based on what type.
All right, so now, to me, the type is the overall message of the song. All right, so what is this type of what? All right, so at the end, is it what type of song is this? Was this a song that gave me wisdom? Was this a song that was a lament? Was he crying out to the Lord for something?
Lament.
Is this a song that was? So that's what I did. Okay, that's the way I looked at it. So to me, I identified it as a lament. Okay. All right, let me pull up the song because I think for me to be able to kind of walk through it, I need to be able to pull it up.
But in your process, though, You were kind of moving. You were doing verse, but you weren't looking at the whole. You were
Not
doing
yet.
verse by verse.
Not
Okay,
yet, which is
right,
why I said that my evaluation of the
Start
entire
with right.
psalm is near the end.
right. Okay,
So what I did was I just went through verse by verse. Instead of reading the whole psalm and then going back up, I read it. Anything, my approach is anything that provoked an image to me that wasn't what the words were saying, I said, okay, I need to evaluate that.
okay.
All right, so let's walk through. Help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth. For the faithful fell from among the children of men. All right, so the synonymous parallelism is here, and this is clearly what it is. Help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth. So the godly man stops. So the synonymous part is the faithful man fell from among the children of men. So ceases to me means death now, because I now have the second verse that says from the children of men. Faithful fall from the children of men. So to me, what he's saying is godly men die and the faithful men die as well. So it's synonymous. See what I mean? There's imagery there that we have to, what is he talking? Now, what if he's not talking about death? What if he's talking about falling or failing? That's fine too. It still works. So one is cease and one is fail. One is godly and one is faithful. See the synonymous nature of these two these two thoughts. All right. Then I said it was also in verse 2, right? So it says, they speak vanity, every one of his neighbor, with flattering lips and with a double heart do they speak. All right, so speaking vanity is not speaking truth, and it's speaking to things that are false. But then you go on and say, with flattering lips and with a double heart they do speak. So to me, that's synonymous as well. The first one is talking about speaking vanity, which is falsities or things that mean nothing. And the second part of the verse is talking about with flattering lips and a double heart do they speak. So there's deception there. So they're not speaking truth in either one. See how I'm applying this concept? I'm saying that these two things are saying the same thing through flowery words or through poetic high language. They're getting to the same idea. What they're saying is not necessarily valid.
Okay.
All right. All right. So what else did I do? So that's then I jumped down to 6 and 7 was also.
Can I stop before one second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So because when you're doing the style, I was doing the speech as I was doing the style. So you do it all and then you come back and do the
No, I'm
speech?
just going down what I wrote.
Oh, okay.
I did it literally. I went verse by verse, and when I popped in an image, so my mechanism that I use is when an image popped in my mind, I went and found where it applied.
Okay.
So now, if I'm going through it right now, it just seems that when I'm looking at, so on my chart, if you look at synonymous, in 12, I have 4 numbers in it, 4 verses. I have verse 1, 2, then I have verse 6 and 7. For now, these are parallelisms. We're
Okay.
talking about the synonymous parallelism.
Right.
So these are the 4 verses that I said are have synonymous parallelism.
Okay.
That's why. So it looks like I'm. So I guess what I should do is.
Because then,
I guess I should just stay
kind of
with.
stretch it out. You got to do it verse by verse.
Well, if you read the Psalms, and this is, like I said, this is a mechanism that I use, and it's laborious, but it hones the skill set that you need to be able to have them stand right out.
Okay.
What I did was, as I read a verse or a phrase, if it invoked an image, I asked myself the question, is he saying this is a literal thing that happened or is happening? Or is it literal or is it imagery?
Okay.
If it's imagery, I have to go and find a device where it fits.
Okay.
All right? And with parallelism, I look for patterns. So I read the verse and I say, okay, did it say the same thing twice? If it did, how did it say it? Did it say A, B, which is alternative? Or did it say positive here and negative here, which means it's antitheticals, opposite, said the same thing, but said a positive one way, a negative, or negative one way, then positive, but it's the same thing. So that's a device. Is it synonymous? Did he say the same thing and it's just with different words? If it invoked a pattern, an image, or something, I evaluate it to find out what it is. Is it literal? When I say is it literal, does he really mean what he's saying? Or is he saying something that means something else? I'm sorry, this is the work of it.
No,
This is the challenge of it.
okay. I'm just a little confused because we didn't, like I got the synonymous portion, but we didn't label it as far as speech. Okay, was that a simile? Was that a metaphor? So do you go through it and then re-go through it, or are you doing it at the same time, verse?
So when I did it, the mechanisms that I used, wherever I stopped, I evaluated it and I put it wherever it was on here. What I did was just now was, I guess was just probably what is confusing. I just read everything that was in my synonymous parallelism box.
Right.
Which doesn't take me to every verse.
Okay.
All right, so what I'm going to do so that we can get through this is I'm going to go in order of my numbers on my verses.
Okay.
So
So
verse
you
1 and
just
2.
gonna list it out. What's synonymous? What's it? Well, the
As
type
we
is
get
more
to the verse.
easier to
So
define.
what I'm going to do is what I captured, I'm going to go to in the order that I captured it in.
Okay.
All right, so for verse 12, for
Chapter
Psalm 12, 1 and 2, I said they were synonymous.
Right.
All right, now I have a 3 over here in a hyperbole. So verse 3, what does verse 3 say? No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong chapter. All right, so the next verse I have that I identified is verse 5. In verse 5, I say there's a metaphor there. What does verse 5 say? Read 5 for me.
For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy. Now will I rise, said the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him.
All right.
And you saying that's a metaphor?
Yeah. All right. So now, when you read verse 5, hi, Pastor Nelson. When you read verse 5,
Okay.
verse 5 conjure any image, does it invoke any imagery to you?
Yeah, I guess the oppression of the poor, and the sign of the needy.
Now, is that literal?
No.
Why is that not literal? Tell
To
me
me,
why it's not
literal.
Because
The
tell
poor
I think it's
are
literal.
oppressed.
Yeah, and I think
And
it's
the needy
'cause
do
it's
sigh.
I think-
Yeah.
So I think it's literal to me.
Okay, because I'm seeing it, and maybe we didn't get to that part yet, but I'm seeing the anthropomorphisms, so I'm not seeing that as literal.
All right, so where do you see anthropomorphism?
We're on verse 5, right?
Yes.
For the oppression of the poor, for the sign of the needy, now I will arise, saith the Lord.
I mean, the guy getting up,
Yeah,
God standing up, coming forth.
All right, so I absolutely see that. I didn't say that was anthropomorphism because, but I agree. I didn't capture it then, but I agree. But if he's standing, you got to have a body to do that.
okay. That was the confusion of what we were talking about, so I'm going to just go with your definition.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
got to have a body to do it.
Gotcha.
Now, when we talk about the works of the Lord, does he have to have a body to do works? No. But if we talk about the works of the hands.
Right,
of the
okay,
Lord, now
got
we're
it.
talking about body works.
Okay.
So what you
Right.
say in verse 5
All right, so 5, I
is
said
a
was
metaphor and
anthropomorphism. I agree with Pastor Price.
I thought you said no. I just crashed it
For,
off.
what?
For anthropomorphism, because he has to have a body.
Well, if he's going to arise, you need a body to arise.
So we're putting it in anthropomorphic.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
But
metaphor.
I thought we just said, I know it was your personal that you do believe he has a spiritual body. It's just when we assign,
We're going by the definition that this anthropomorphism
not what you said. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So any body part,
So-
we throwing down.
Yeah, because if we're talking about anthropomorphism, whether we agree with this or not, it's a literary device that we want to leverage based
Okay.
on what the definition of the device is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so what I got as a metaphor in 5 was I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. And puffeth at him, me doing that to you is not threatening. So there's got to be some kind of imagery there. So what puffs at people that's dangerous? Like a puff adder, a snake or something. So some dangerous imagery here that God has taken this person and placed him in a safety place because of whatever puffs at them is dangerous. So that to me is a metaphor.
So now that's what was confusing, because if I saw the metaphor, then I would say it wasn't literal.
Exactly.
So I said literal, no, but you say, yes, I see it as literal.
No,
Oh.
You said, I thought we were reading the first part of the verse when we were talking
Okay,
about
so now we're looking at the two
So
different
now when we
parts.
get down to puffeth
Okay,
thou,
all
now I see. See, this is the dissection of that we read.
The verse.
The first part of the verse seemed literal to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we get down to this thing that says puffeth,
Mm-hmm.
what's dangerous about somebody puffing at you?
Okay.
So I think now there's something else there now that says, okay, what puffs at you that would be dangerous? Now you have a symbolic, now a snake will puff at you, and that's dangerous.
Okay.
So whatever this danger is being viewed as this snake or this venomous thing that's gonna. See, that's the imagery that it provokes in me. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
All right. So that's 5, chapter 12, verse 5. All right, so the next thing I have is 6 and 7. And to me, they're synonymous parallelisms. No, yeah, 6 and 7. And a simile is in 6. You guys see that?
Yes, silver tried and furnished. Mm-hmm.
All right. Because now we're talking about. All right, so 6 and 7. 6. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried, as silver.
Right.
And he's making a comparison between the Lord's being tried and true and pure, as silver is pure through fire, purified through fire. So that's clearly imagery right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
7, thou shalt keep them, O Lord, and shalt preserve them from the generation forever. So, preserve them from this generation. So this is, I think, is more imagery. Synonymous parallelism. If the Lord's going to keep them, then that means He's going to preserve them. So that's synonymous parallelism right there. Right? So He's saying one thing, and He's saying the same thing again in the next part of the verse. Are we good for 12?
So,
Tell me.
yeah, because I'm just trying to get the process.
Absolutely.
We didn't look at 3 through 5, and we didn't look at 8. So where do they fall in?
Well, I looked at them. I didn't see anything. So let's look at them.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's do an analysis on this then. All right. So let's look at 3. The Lord shall cut off flattering lips, and the tongue. Is that what it is? And the tongue that speaketh proud things. Wait a second. I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah. That tongue.
No, you just did 1, 2, 6, 7, 5, and 6.
All right. Here it is. I think I wrote it in the wrong place. Let me read this real quick now to clear
The
it.
Lord shall cut off
All right, so let's ask the question on 3. Let's do the analysis right now. Is the Lord really going to cut off people's lips?
No.
So that's imagery, right? All right, so, and the tongue that speaketh proud things. Now, does the tongue speak proud things?
Yes.
But it doesn't. The tongue doesn't. The person does. So the tongue is reflecting the person here.
Right.
And this is synecdoche. Because now we're saying that this one thing is representing the whole.
This is.
See, this is
Yeah.
the laborious task of walking through this stuff.
Okay.
Figure of speech.
So tongue and lips actually represent a person. So he's now saying he's using this imagery to talk about people. But he's using these one parts of people to reflect the whole people or the whole person.
3. So when we do this, like, do we have to put, like, if that's the case in verse 3,
Yes, I just
we
put
have to
3 in
show you
box.
that the connection is tongue that speaking proud things.
Now,
How do we show that, like, on our final paper, how do we show what we mean by what we chose to be?
if you chose it, you know why you chose it, and you can write that in the final paper.
So,
So, like,
we didn't have to explain
what
why
you
would we
said
say
right
the
now,
tongue that
yes.
that speaketh proud things, but it's not the tongue that is speaking, it's the person.
Yes.
That's
So
what
the
we
tongue
must
is
say to
representing
you.
the person. Yes. Just exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's laborious right now, but I promise you it's going to get easier.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Now it's
gonna hold
connecting
you
the
to it.
dots too. And what are we trying to gain from this?
We're trying to be able to identify these literary devices that help us to see that the author is saying things more than just what the words are. He's giving us images, and these images mean more. Now, one thing we have to remember is these images stand out very quickly for ancient Near East people because they knew exactly what he was talking about.
Right.
Now, what we have to do is when we exegete the scriptures, we have to figure out what he was talking about based on the times that he was saying. And then once we realize what he was talking about, then we have to take that and then we have to apply it to our times, which is hermeneutics. So this is the issue that we're facing. What does he mean? Now, when you look at Israel, you're looking at farmers and herders, the shepherds. That was their profession. So a lot of times what they talked about was about they made farming references and herding, shepherding references all the time. It was only when they got kings, and judges when they started having war. So then they would make war references. But for the most part, even during Jesus' time, you're talking about farmers and shepherds. Which is why a lot of the scriptures always make these references to agriculture and shepherding, is because that was their professions. And they understood what that imagery is.
Okay.
All right, so did we go to 4 and 5? What was 4? Did you say anything?
So, excuse me, 3, we saw synecdoche, and the style of it was? Or
the style, the parallelism?
yes.
All right, let me see.
It's not.
I don't see a style in there. Because to me, he's not saying A, B, B, A, or A, B, A, B, or he's not saying... So to me, every verse doesn't always have a style associated with it. Just like every verse doesn't always have a simile. Every verse doesn't always have a metaphor.
Okay,
So like I said, the mechanism that I use is when I read a verse, does it invoke imagery to me that could mean something else than what the words are saying? Why would he use the word puffeth in terms of danger? There's an image there. He's using that word for a reason. And they knew what that meant. They knew that meant a puff adder. You're talking about the ancient, you're talking about the Middle East. They knew that puff adders puffeth at you before they strike. So that imagery, when the psalmist said it, they immediately knew that God is placing me in a place of safety because of something that's puffing at me, and something that puffing at me is going to be something that's venomous and dangerous.
Okay.
So anything that invokes this imagery, you have to evaluate it.
So that means that we have to take each of these divisions of Psalm and we have to categorize as far as type, style, and speech. Then we have to go through verse by verse and see not so much verse 5, because usually sometimes the start of the psalm might give you what the style it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that part usually is easier to kind of grasp initially, but getting into the type in the speech, which takes you more into
all right, so let's do this.
Discerning the verses.
This is what I want to do. As an exercise, this is what I want to do. I want each of us to read until we see something. So let's go to 13.
Okay. But see, that's what I was doing. I was bringing up. I said I would have to write each. I have to write Psalm 12, have a sheet for Psalm 12 with style, type, speech.
But that's why
Psalm 13.
That's why
You see what I'm saying?
I was hoping that I did that work for you.
I was kind of losing my way on this because see what I was doing. I had to write like chapter 5, chapter 6.
Or you just write a number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here, let me show you mine.
Okay, I couldn't find anything. All my work. My book.
That's all right. We're gonna go through it together.
Oh, this morning you couldn't.
So this is what I did.
I did it.
I just put 21 through 40, and I just wrote down
Whatever.
wherever it applied. I just applied it.
Okay.
But then I found myself wondering, like what I did right here, like there's synecdoche, writing what is a synecdoche? Tone, not speaking, but the person. For my
Good thing we're
memory's sake.
going over.
I got you.
You see what I'm
So
saying?
I put the definitions on
what
here
is the
to hopefully
synecdoche?
invoke that kind of. So this is what I did. The way I have these out here like this, I took my staple out. I got my kitchen table and I lined them over my kitchen table, and that's how I went through it. Because I want to be able to go down for every division of song. I want to be able to go down. Okay.